All right, and we're live. Welcome everybody to the Heptio Ark Q+A. The date is November 13th, 2018. This is our monthly Q&A sessions. The way this works is we take your user questions from either the Ark channel or the mailing list, and then we answer them for you. We also take this opportunity to kind of engage with the community. So we do a live stream once a month. Let me just make sure that everything looks okay on the stream. There we go. So the way it works is we're going to do some quick intros. We are going to give everyone some status items on everything that's coming in release, make some announcements, get to some questions. We'll do shout outs, and then we'll basically talk about Ark for the next hour. If you're chilling out in the Slack channel, feel free to just drop a question in there. That's #ark-dr in the Kubernetes Slack. And then we'll get to you. If you ever have one of these tough problems where you can't quite figure it out, you can always leave your questions in the Ark channel throughout the month, and then Nolan and I will kind of go through and try to find the ones that aren't answered, or even if they are answered and are interesting or something to the community, we'll go ahead and highlight those during the show so that, what I like to think is you just subscribe to this show, and then once a month you get your status updates on what's happening in the Ark community. So with that, let's do some quick introductions. I'm George. I'll be your host. Steve?
Hey everyone, I'm Steve Chris. I work at Heptio, based out of Boise, Idaho. Moved here recently from Seattle, and I work on Ark.
All right, I'm Nolan Brubaker. I'm based in Indiana, and I am a system software developer on Ark.
I am Carlicia. I am based off of San Diego. I am just back from a 4-day extended vacation. I don't know where my brain is. And I'm an engineer at Ark as well.
And Marissa, do you want to go before Jorge?
Sure. I'm Marissa. I am based in Seattle. I'm on Heptio's marketing team, and I am here to answer any questions about our recent acquisition by VMware.
And then Jorge, we have a user here, so introduce yourself.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Jorge, like the other Jorge. I'm based out of Austin, Texas. I work with the Texas Advanced Computing Center that is affiliated with the University of Texas at Austin. Really joining for the first time, hoping to contribute in any way possible to Ark. And not really a user, but I've been following with the project and actually trying to see how we can fit it into into some type of into some projects that we actually do here at the laboratory. And yep.
Awesome. It is great to have you. Just an open invite to everybody. Not only do we just have these meetings, but anyone is welcome to actually just hop on. We send an invite every month to the Heptio Ark Google group. So if you ever have a question that's like really convoluted, or the high bandwidth meeting in Zoom, if you prefer to do that, this meeting is open to everybody. So if you have any questions, we're going to get through some announcements, and then I'm totally interested in asking Jorge some questions on how you're using Ark and stuff like that. And it looks like we have people dialing in. Excellent. All right. So let's start with some quick announcements real quick. So the big one, VMware has acquired Heptio. So what does this mean for Ark and everything? So we're happy to report that everything will absolutely be remaining the same. Same team, same release, same open development. So we will continue to have open design sessions, Q&As such as this. The mailing list will remain public. Everything about the public Heptio Ark project will remain as is. So hopefully that will allay any fears that you might have. Does anybody have any comments on this or anything to add? We'll be happy to field. Marissa will be happy to field any questions if you have them. But for most of us, it's pretty much situation normal. We just wear a different T-shirt in a month. So for my part, I'm really excited to be working on this. It'll be great. And this includes all of our projects, all the Heptio open source projects, not just Ark. Okay, next big big topic. We're going to talk about the v0.10 release. We've got a beta out. And Steve, let's take it over to you. I noticed you just put out a punch list. What's the plan for v.10?
Yeah, sure. So we've had the beta out for a couple of weeks. We've been doing plenty of testing internally, and some of our partners have been testing with us as well. So if you want to get an early preview, that beta is out there for you to use. But we're pushing towards getting the GA 0.10 release out, targeting this week. So the current target is Thursday. You can see through the notes that there's an issue in GitHub, which has kind of a checklist of all of the items that we need to complete before we're ready to release. So assuming we can get through all those in the next couple of days, we should be good to push a release out on Thursday. It's possible, if we can't quite get through them, that it would push into next week, but we're really trying to push towards Thursday. So.
Okay. And is there anything of these features that you like tested specifically, or just a whole thing? Is there any last minute thing you want to say to anybody testing?
Anyone who has plugins that they've developed. So any custom block stores or object stores, or maybe backup or restore item actions. I would say that's certainly a good area to focus on doing some testing with the beta. There are breaking changes to the plugin interfaces, and so I would definitely recommend checking out the documentation for the beta on those, and doing some upgrading and testing to make sure that you'll continue to be okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else for .10? So you're hoping for this Thursday, and as we were talking before, no Friday releases, right?
Yeah, we're staying away from Friday.
All right, so either this Thursday or we'll bump to next week at some point. But it's looking like Thursday's pretty reasonable. I love when releases are boring. I like you, Steve. Speaking of releases, we also have .9.11 out with some critical bug fixes. Please upgrade. So could someone explain to me real quick, 0.9 is getting point releases as well, and then we have 0.10. So currently right now, if I'm using Ark, I should be on .9.11 is the latest stable release then, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we will stop issuing updates for the 0.9 release once 0.10 comes out. And then our bug fixes every 2 weeks will start going against the 0.10.
Okay.
release.
Do we expect to continue releasing bug fixes on .9?
No.
Okay.
So once we cut 0.10, we'll flip over to doing bug fixes on 0.10.
Okay.
So 0.10 will come out, and then in about 2 weeks, we'll have 0.10.1, and depending on the holidays, we might get 0.10.2 before the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the bi-weekly bug fixes will move from 0.9, which will basically stop getting updates.
Okay. So, and then after that, it's just the usual cadence, twice a week, right?
Twice a week, and then I know we've got some questions later about other release schedule, but we can talk about that.
We will
Just to clarify, once every 2 weeks, not twice a week.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
bi-weekly, yes.
Yeah, every other week. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Other announcement. We're not going to have any Q&A next month. This actually won't happen because we'll be at KubeCon. When I publish the notes to the list, I'll kind of say what we're doing basically for the end of the year. So for most of us, due to KubeCon and the holidays, most of the activity will kind of stop at the end of November, and then we will resume at the beginning of the year. Speaking of, okay, so now we have. Oh, and those of you that are coming to KubeCon, you can find myself, Ross, Andy, Carlicia, Jennifer, or any other Heptonians. We will be at KubeCon. Feel free to come up to us if you have feedback. We'd be happy to listen to you. Okay, next one is the notes say the Heptio Ark team is revisiting plans for 1.0. So as it ends up, Steve was just sitting around one day thinking, hey, we're actually pretty close to a 1.0 if we think about a few things. So a lot of the feedback we've been getting from the community is people have been asking why it's not 1.0. It works. It's pretty stable. You know, we have like this kind of way below 1.0 number, like 0.10. What does that mean? You know, in relation to other kind of software that you use, especially when Kubernetes is 1. something. So people have been asking about a 1.0, and the team was kind of mulling it. And we were, if you are subscribed to the design sessions that we have this month, we're actually thinking about doing encryption at rest as our next feature. So what we were thinking is, instead, for the rest of the year, kind of concentrate on getting a 1.0 out. So what does this mean? What does this mean to me now that I've said this statement? I don't know who wants to take this, either Steve or Nolan.
Yeah, I can start. So we're for 1.0, we really want to focus on just making sure that the core Arc functionality is really stable. And so, you know, any high priority bugs or limitations we're going to plan to address, but also we want to tackle API stability. So that when we put a 1.0 out, folks can be assured that there won't be breaking changes until 2.0. You know, right now, since we're pre 1.0, we kind of reserve the right to make breaking changes in any given release, although we try to make it as minimally impactful to users. But with 1.0, we're really going to guarantee that we won't break things within that major release series. So that will be the big focus. We're not going to try to tackle any major features during the 1.0 release, although certainly there are some smaller things that are really kind of usability issues or things that we think are just necessary to call something stable. And so we're still working on kind of grooming the backlog and defining exactly what's in scope. We're doing a kind of a pass on that with the core team, but we're planning to publish that out to the entire community very soon, and we absolutely want input from everyone on that list.
So the plan then will be, so we were going to have a design Q&A session for encryption at rest on November 27th. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to punt that into the next month, which is effectively January because of the holidays. And then instead, we're going to have a design session around 1.0. This gives everybody 2 weeks-ish to basically decide what's important for them for 1.0. So we'll be posting this to the Google group as well. Steve is working on like a first. So how are we going to do this? Are you going to do like a 1.0 tag? How do people nominate their issue that they care about for 1.0?
So I think we've started, I mean, initially we just dumped all of the issues from GitHub into a spreadsheet and went through it that way. That was kind of the easiest way to view them in bulk. But I think we'll be going through the GitHub issues and updating the milestones that each one is tagged with. So the plan is to eventually get to, you know, everything that's in 1.0 is tagged with the 1.0 milestone, and other things are tagged with future milestones.
Okay.
I think probably in terms of how we do the review with the community, I think we'll probably publish a spreadsheet or something like that and have, you know, folks provide us comments or notes through that. And then once we kind of get to consensus, we can make the GitHub updates so that it's clear for everyone.
Yeah, sure. I think the avenue for that will probably be publishing to the Google group, like sharing the spreadsheet to the Google group and having discussion there.
Yep. And then what we'll do is when we publish these notes, we'll separately just have like a road to 1.0 kind of mail that I'll send out today, and then you could always reply with the list and stuff. One thing that we do want to say is that even though we are concentrating on kind of correctness, stability, and forward compatibility, if you still want to work on a feature for Arc, we'll absolutely help you do that as well. So if there was a feature that you were kind of hoping for, if you want encryption at rest to come earlier, or replication, let us know. The team will be happy to talk with you about that. We absolutely are still doing this, just a little bit later on down the road. Just to be clear then, we are going 0.9. Wait, the one we just came out with was
0.9.11.
.11
last week.
To a .10 series, bi-weekly releases, and then a 1.0. Okay, so probably not this calendar year, right? Because that doesn't give you a lot of room.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead, Nolan.
I was just going to say, I don't know that we've agreed on what the thing after v0.10 will be. We may have a v0.11, but I think the current goal is to have v0, or 1.0 be by Q3 of next year. So it's possible it'll be the next one, but we may have V011 in as well.
Q3 fiscal calendar.
Oh, sorry, Q1 of 2019.
Okay, right. All right. So before March-ish. That's okay. We'll have 3 Q&A and design sessions before then. So as we kind of make the journey, if you'll be able to just listen into this, and you'll be able to know how we're doing so far. So I think the important thing for those of you listening is to help us out if you have anything, any issue that is important to you. And we'll put this on a list as well. Now's the time to be loud. Ross has also something to say about 1.0.
Yeah, so from a product, so hey everyone, I'm Ross. I'm the product manager that sort of oversees Ark. If there are features or issues that you have against the GitHub repo, or if there aren't issues and you would like to have a feature or capability or even a bug fix that you really would like to have for the 1.0, please make a comment in the issues, sort of saying like propose 1.0. I can't guarantee that we're gonna put that in there, but if I don't necessarily, I'm gonna try to make the best calls along with working with the Ark team and anybody who's in the Ark Slack channel as part of this 1.0 planning. But if I don't have any signal that people need or want things, I'm going to make my best judgment call based on what I know and talking with our customers. But from a community perspective, now's the time to sort of voice your desires and needs. We can't guarantee it's going to get in there, but the more people vocalize their interest in a particular feature or particular bug fix, we'll look to try to make sure that we make the right product decisions to get those in or not.
Mm-hmm. All right. And with that, does anybody on the channel, I'm watching the YouTube and the Slack channel. Thanks to the 9 people watching live. Any questions so far? See, I knew it would be delightfully boring. Jorge, do you have any questions so far? Before we move into the shout-outs, do you have anything you have to say about Ark, or you want to kind of tell us how you're using it? Is it like...
Well, actually, the thing is that I'm looking into actually using it right now because of containers and high-performance computing platforms have a complicated relationship. So we're just getting started into seeing how to use it, how to actually make services reliable for other users. So just getting started.
Awesome. Thanks. And with that, and thanks for joining, we're going to do some community shout-outs real quick before we get to the questions. Brian Lepez and Jordan Taylor for fixing and finding a bug in the schedule creation command. Thank you. Lucas Jakinchuk, sorry, for fixing an ownership of AWS volumes. Thanks for that. James Powis for fixing service account token resources. Shubheksha for restoring storage classes before PV/PVCs. Thank you very much. Bash of Man, great name, for ensuring that the order returned by list objects is consistent in AWS. Dominic Rosati for adding CRDs to the list of prioritized resources. And Midhun Biju for correcting some grammar mistakes in the README. Thank you very much, those of you who are helping out with Ark. All right, now we have some live questions. I'm going to start with this one because it's kind of semi-related to what we've been talking about 1.0. Michael asks, hi, I won't be able to join online, but for sure I'll watch the video. What features are planned for V0.11? So knowing what, Steve, what you just said before, just kind of reiterate for us then, that would make V.10 kind of the last feature release-ish.
The last major feature release prior to 1.0, yeah.
Right. And we're not expecting any major features then as the drive to 1.0, other than maybe things that plugin authors or API consistency kind of style stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly want to tackle any kind of usability issues or gaps, and so we may add some things or change some things to try and make Ark more usable, but really the focus is going to be on making sure the API is good, doing a review of all of our API objects and making sure that we're happy with all of the fields and that they give us the ability to be forwards compatible. Going through some of the stability issues, any issues where Ark runs into problems and trying to address those. But no major features, nothing like replication or encryption at rest will be landing before 1.0.
And I'm sure once we get to 1.0, we'll kind of probably, because we always do this, is kind of put out another call for what features people want. I don't want everyone to assume that, we're only thinking about encryption at rest and replication, and that's the only thing there. So I think as we get towards 1.0 and that starts to button up, we'll once again have Ross on asking for a bunch of feedback, and then we'll give it to him. So as usual, if you want major features, please let us know, and then we'll just prioritize accordingly. So it sounds like it's going to be from an end user features perspective, is going to be a very boring in a good way kind of release where we're just kind of tightening up things and getting out a solid 1.0.
Yeah, and I think, just if you look back over the last few releases that we've done, we've shipped a bunch of major features. And so, 0.10, we've been working on backup storage locations and volume snapshot locations, which give you more kind of ability to configure where your backups go and what types of volumes get snapshots. Prior to that, we added Rustic integration, which gives you a way to back up any volumes that don't have snapshot plugins. We implemented plugins before that. So we've done a bunch of releases in a row that have done major features. And so, we need to just step back a little bit and tidy up some things and do some cleanup and work on that stability. So,
yep. Any other comments on 1.0? Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I will say, I think this is in one of the questions we put down below that we saw this past month. But one thing we saw from v0.9 to v0.10 was as we were developing, people were pulling some stuff from master and they were getting errors because examples in master didn't line up with the images that we had out there on the Docker repositories. We're hoping to avoid that kind of stuff in 1.0. Steve is working on a thing to completely negate that. So yeah, that kind of disruption is something we want to avoid once we get 1.0 out. We just want to make sure we've got all of that, what we're comfortable with in place until 2.0.
Yep, and I see Jennifer joined. Do we have anything to say as far as examples and documentation for a 1.0 push this year?
We've got a couple of issues tagged for 1.0 to revamp the docs, especially the install docs, so that there's a cleaner getting started experience for first-time encounterers of Ark, and then clearer doc paths for getting started with on-prem and cloud providers. And we're also, the other big issue for 1.0 is a clean, complete contributors guide. We've had folks in the community, not just folks at Heptio, asking for that. It got backburnered this year. It will get to the front of the line finally for 1.0.
All right. Jennifer, just in case, for those of you listening the first time, can you introduce yourself real quick? Okay.
Sure.
There you go.
I think
you're muted.
Nope, I think that's just instability. But I do docs for Heptio, and right now I'm doing docs for Heptio's open source project, and Ark is my top priority. So we're doing our best to give the docs a lot of love. It's a team project. I'm a lot the shepherd, not the entire producer of the words.
All right, good to know. All right, how about you ready? Is everybody ready for some questions then about Ark that we've been grabbing over the month? So the way this works is we'll watch the Slack channel. If there's anything interesting or really difficult issues that people are having, we try to go over them again during the stream. And of course, if you have any live questions in the Slack channel, feel free to ask them now. We'll be happy to address them over the air. With that, someone asked, my Rustic restores are failing after about an hour. What's happening?
Do you want to take that one, Nolan?
Sure. It's finding the mute button. So Rustic, in the currently released state that Arc uses is single threaded, and for not even necessarily huge data sets. I think we've seen some of 6 gigabytes. It can take a while, and Rustic will time out. There are some controls you can do to make it wait longer, so that Rustic will just wait until it's got everything restored. However, a more long-term solution is a fix that Rustic has merged into master but unreleased, which is to make restores multi-threaded so that they'll restore a lot faster. We've been keeping an eye on that, and we will get that released once they have it released.
Now, when we say multi-threaded, is this like IO-wise or operation-wise, or?
I didn't look at the details of that PR.
Okay.
Steve, did you look more in detail at it?
I'm not intimately familiar with the implementation of it. I do know that from a user experience perspective, I mean, you're looking at 10, 20, 30x improvement in restore speeds, so it's significant. The PR's had been in flight for 6 months, 9 months, something like that. So there's been a lot of testing on it, a lot of review on it to really make sure it's working well. And so at this point, it's in master. I think they're continuing to do some testing and some tweaking, but we should expect a release relatively soon. And once that's done, then we'll look to fold that into Arc, and should make the restore experience much, much better for Arc users.
That's awesome.
And I think it was doing like one file at a time in sequence, but now it's able to restore individual files in parallel, I believe is kind of the main
gist
of that PR.
Yeah. I have a dumb non-engineering question. Why would it be a timeout? Wouldn't it be like, as soon as you're done, let me know?
So I'm trying to remember the implementation. I think we sit and wait for a certain amount of time. And if you let us know you're done before then, great. But we're only going to wait for X amount of seconds. We can specify that, and we can say wait 3 days, but that's not great for the user to try to restore a big data set, and it takes longer to restore that than it does to stand up something new.
Right. Okay, thanks. All right, moving on. Next question. What's needed for Prometheus to scrape my Arc deployment for metrics? And I'm going to add a little sub question for that. What metrics are we exposing currently via Prometheus? Didn't we have this discussion about?
We had this discussion a little bit last time, but there was at least a couple questions about how Prometheus actually sees the Arc metrics endpoint. So I've put this in the notes that we'll put out there, but there's 3 annotations that need to be on the deployment, and the container needs to expose the appropriate port on the container spec. As far as what metrics we publish backups attempted, backups failed, restore backup size in bytes, backup time, so the duration, restore attempts and restore failures, and I'm not
restore
sure
time by any chance?
I can't remember if we have restore time. I think we might.
Because that would be cool in the Rustic thing. You could actually see it, a month later, right?
Yeah, I don't.
There is restoration duration, but I don't remember if we export metrics from. Like I don't remember if the Rustic restore, like at the end of the Rustic restore, then triggers the end timer. I don't remember how that ties in.
I think it's at the end of the entire restore. So if it times out, it'll send that. So it's not like a progression thing. So it's just at the end of a restore, we'll say it took this long. And those are most of them. I don't think I'll go through the annotations here, but they will be posted in our Arc community repo in the show notes.
Yep, and we have the link right there already. So, all right. Anything else on Prometheus before we move on? Awesome, awesome. And then the last question for the month. The Ark server can't start up. It says there's a missing config.
I can take that one.
Yeah.
So what happens there is a mismatch between the Arc release that you're using and the example file that you're running it with. So what you have to do is make sure that you are on the right branch. In that case, you switch to the release 0.9 branch, and all should be well.
Okay.
Because ultimately, we did away with the config CRD, so we don't have that CRD anymore.
Okay.
So, but if you're using the incorrect branch, you'll still be there. So.
Okay, now the notes do say as of version 10, the .10, the release tarballs will contain example YAML for the relevant release. So is that?
Yeah, so I've been working on that. So our documentation currently kind of points users to example YAML files directly in the GitHub repo.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the branches and things pointing to master, this is kind of where we get skew between the Docker image that folks are using versus the version of the YAML. And so what we're doing as of 0.10, the PR to do this is still open, but it's one of the things we need to get done for 0.10, is that we will be shipping all of the example YAML files in the release tarball on GitHub. So when 0.10 comes out, you'll have the GitHub release that contains the binary. It will also contain all of the example YAML files, and each of those will have the 0.10 tag on the Ark container image, so that everything will line up. You'll have the 0.10 binary, you'll have example YAML files that match that 0.10 release, and they'll all have the 0.10 image tag. So we think that's going to make things easier for users. It means they won't have to go clone the Ark repo just to run Ark. They can actually just download that release tarball and get going from there.
Mm-hmm.
And so hopefully this kind of minimizes this issue going forward.
Yep, nice and self-contained. All right, any other comments on this? All right, and someone might have a question on YouTube. I'm just waiting to see if they respond. If not, let's just quickly go over those are all the questions that we've gotten over the month. Like we say, if you've got an interesting question, just ask it in the channel. We'd be more than happy to cover it. It seems like a lot of the questions that get asked during the month, you all answer. So usually a lot of this is just kind of catching the loose ends and things like that. But those of you that are using it, please continue to just use the channel, and we will do our best to continue answering. Before we wrap it up here, let's talk about the schedule for the rest of 2018, just to see how it affects everybody. So the next design discussion will be on November 27th at this time slot, and we will adjust accordingly for time zones, so it's at the same time. And that's going to be straight up, what do we want 1.0 to be? By then, Steve, you should have your nice list of issues. We should have some good feedback from the community on what exactly they want to see in 1.0. And then I think it's just a matter of hashing through it. That shouldn't be very controversial. After that, we will be doing no streams in December, basically, because we're going directly to KubeCon. And then after that, the holidays around the world and things like that. And then we will resume in January, continuing our drive to 1.0 with snapshots every other week, not twice a week. Right, Steve? All right. And with that, let me do... Oh, it looks like Travis Bickford has a question on YouTube. Thank you all for taking the time to do this. He asks, is the ability to set the Rustic repo password set to be in the 1.0 release?
That's a good question. I can take that. So just as context, so Rustic has the ability to encrypt all of the data that it backs up, and you set an encryption password or a key, which basically enables you or the system to access that data and decrypt it. Currently with Ark, we're not actually using a secret password. We're kind of relying on IAM stuff set up for your object storage, which is where the Rustic data lives, to secure that information. And so to answer the question, we don't currently have this actually as an issue in our repo, and so it's not currently slated for 1.0, but I am definitely going to add an issue for this because it is something that we're aware of and that we wanted to tackle. It's kind of, I would say it falls under the broader encryption at rest epic that we've been talking about, and this is a kind of a major feature or set of features that we do want to tackle post 1.0. But I think it's also, worth considering whether there's something we can do in the short term to get this done for 1.0.
I would also be curious in knowing why you want to change the password or what you want to set it to, not the actual password, but what's the reason there. One of our hopes with the Rustic integration was to abstract the underlying way that we do that, so that you just have to interact with the Ark CLI and the Ark CRDs. And so providing sort of lower level access to that actual Rustic repo sort of violates my perception of API boundaries. And so having a better understanding of what you want to accomplish with that is something that should go into that GitHub issue, so that whether or not it's giving you the ability to set the password as the right thing, or maybe there's other ways that we can give you the same functionality without necessarily violating those API abstractions.
And to be clear, Steve, you're going to file the issue then, right? So that
I'll add an issue just so we have it recorded, and then further discussion can happen there.
Okay, so Travis, if you're still listening, feel free to search for the issues. Give Steve some time there to file it. Ross, how does it work with as far as users filing issues? If me putting, "Hey, I use this in production" in my description help your judgment process, or?
It certainly does. I mean, right. So when I'm looking at incoming GitHub issues, first of all, is this a bug? And this whole team is working to triage bugs. So there's from a PM perspective, I keep an eye on the repo, but I'm not necessarily checking it every single day. We have an on-call rotation for the Ark team. So there's usually at least 1 or 2 people each week that are keeping an eye on incoming GitHub issues and are also keeping an eye on the Ark DR channel on the Kubernetes Slack. So when you're asking a question, someone from this team is sort of keeping an eye on those channels to try to be as responsive as possible. That also means that the rest of the team can focus on writing code or merging PRs when they're not necessarily on call. So it's a nice balance there. And then we also have periodic squad syncs. So internally, this group meets a couple of times internally, talking about what things are in flight. Are there any priorities? And then Heptio also has, we have paying customers. And so as part of our Heptio Kubernetes subscription, our customers are often making feature requests or requesting bugs or finding bugs in Ark. And so as we sort of, from a PM and Ark development team, we're, on a regular basis, we're looking at what are the outstanding issues, which ones are priority one. So which ones are causing a breaking outage. So if you were trying to do view of a disaster and your backups aren't working, that's something that we're going to pay attention to very quickly. Or, in the off chance that we issue a new release of Ark and realize that we made a mistake. And this is something that's happened a couple times in the last at least 1 or 2 releases or some patch releases where we realized we forgot something or we didn't quite test a certain upgrade path. And so those are things where you'll see this team, I'm always impressed by them rallying around and doing a very, very fast hot fix to get that patched out. So definitely, if you are encountering a problem live, definitely jump into the ArkDR Slack channel. If you can't talk live, then definitely file an issue. And if you need production support, if this is a production system and you want production support where you can call our support team and actually talk to Heptio's customer reliability engineers that can sort of jump on the phone and triage with you, you should talk to me or our sales team. And that's something that we offer as a 24/7 production break fix offering.
All right, good to know. Thanks for the question, Travis, and thanks for joining us live on YouTube. Any other questions for the team? I'm going to give it, I know there's a 10-second delay between the stream and the chat, so we will give it some time there. If you have any questions, let me check the Slack channel. And we will wait. It is snowing up here in Michigan, in case anybody's wondering. How's San Diego, Carlicia?
Chilly.
Oh, I'm sure.
but very sunny.
All right, and with that, unless I get any last second questions, we're going to close it up. Okay, so here's what's going to happen is we'll go through the notes here real quick, kind of get your last bits in, and then we'll whack them all into the Google group to publish them for everybody. And then I'll take the 1.0 section and kind of just have a separate 1.0 mail separately. So, it's obvious to people that that's like a major thing, even though it's in the notes. And then I'll go ahead and schedule. We're just going to rename the design session, the 27th, to be about 1.0, so we're not spamming everyone's emails. And with that, thanks everybody who's joined us on the stream. Thanks to our team for joining us. Thank you, Jorge, for sitting in. Again, anyone who wants to sit in these meetings, you're more than welcome to hang out with the team. We do love it. Any last-minute comments before we get back to work?
Just thanks for showing up, asking questions, and have a good Thanksgiving next week if you're in the U.S.
Yeah. All right. We'll see everybody next month. Thank you. Or actually later on this month. Bye.